Just outside the ancient stone walls of Jerusalem lies a deep topographical scar known as the Valley of Hinnom. For centuries, this specific geography served as ground zero for one of the darkest religious practices in the ancient Near East. Down in this ravine, ritual fires burned to consume human offerings. The archaeological and textual records converge here to describe rites where children were burned alive to secure divine favor. The cult of Moloch operated as an institution of state-sponsored syncretism, a calculated tool used by Judah's kings to forge geopolitical alliances. By importing these rituals, Israelite leadership integrated their nation with the surrounding dominant empires, changing the theological landscape of the region to maintain power. Understanding Moloch requires recognizing it as a highly structured political mechanism for cultural and political absorption. The severity of this practice is defined by the foundational laws of Israel, the covenantal baseline, specifically designed to prevent this type of assimilation. The legal boundary is drawn in Leviticus chapter 18, verse 21. The text commands the Israelites not to give their children to be sacrificed to Moloch. Within the framework of the Torah, this explicit ban established the act as both idolatry and murder. The statutes set the penalty in Leviticus chapter 20, verses 2 through 5. The text mandates that the penalty for this sacrifice is death. This extreme judicial response underscores the degree to which Yahweh abhorred the imitation of neighboring pagan worship. The strictness of these laws identifies child sacrifice as the exact inversion of the covenantal mandate to protect life. By attaching the death penalty to the imitation of these rites, the legal code framed the practice as a direct threat to the survival of the Israelite identity. The target of these sacrifices is associated heavily with the Ammonites, a nation east of the Jordan River. The title Moloch, also spelled Molech or Milcom, likely derives from the Hebrew root melech, meaning king. Tangible proof of this practice exists across Phoenician and Punic regions, including Carthage, where human offerings were used to secure divine favor and state prosperity. The epigraphic evidence left behind by these cultures, literally carved into stone markers, validates the ancient historical accounts of these sacrificial rites. These acts took place in a distinct location known as a topheth. This was a designated sacrificial zone built outside the city limits, equipped with specific altars designed for burning offerings. Ancient descriptions outline a mechanical process where victims were placed onto the outstretched arms of large bronze statues, heated from below by fire. The topheth functioned as a highly organized, institutionalized theater designed to secure geopolitical prosperity through ritualized bloodshed. Why would the leadership of Israel systematically embrace a ritual that carried the death penalty under their own law? Topheth rituals operated as political leverage. By adopting the gods of the dominant empires surrounding them, Judah's kings signaled their loyalty and integrated themselves into the broader regional power structure. This timeline of royal compromise begins in 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 7. The text records that King Solomon built high places for foreign gods, including Moloch, on a hill east of Jerusalem. This was an act of political accommodation for his foreign wives, laying the structural groundwork for national apostasy. Several generations later, the practice intensified. According to 2 Kings chapter 16, verse 3, King Ahaz made his son pass through the fire. Operating in the turbulent geopolitical climate of the 8th century BC, Ahaz used this sacrifice to align his administration with neighboring pagan nations. This strategy reached its systemic peak under King Manasseh, as documented in 2 Kings chapter 21, verse 6. He caused his son to pass through the fire and filled Jerusalem with idolatry, effectively standardizing the cult as a state institution. Step by step, the kingdom of Judah weaponized the blood of their own children as a diplomatic tool, abandoning their covenant for the sake of state security. This state-sponsored idolatry triggered the most severe theological indictments found in the biblical record, delivered by the prophets. The prophet Isaiah delivers a critique in Isaiah chapter 57, verse 5. He describes the people as inflaming yourselves with idols under every green tree, slaying the children in the valleys under the clefts of the rocks. Isaiah framed these political sacrifices as a profound betrayal and spiritual adultery. Writing during the Babylonian exile, Ezekiel formulated a detailed legal case against the state. In Ezekiel chapter 16, verses 20 through 21, he states that Israel took the sons and daughters God had given them and sacrificed them to idols. His argument focuses on the literal murder of children who legally and rightfully belong to God. He expands this indictment in Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 26, stating that the people made their children pass through the fire. Ezekiel argues that this continuous practice polluted the land and constituted a supreme crime against humanity. Through these records, the prophet systematically dismantled the political justifications of the monarchy, identifying the worship of Moloch as a total breach of the covenant, requiring divine justice. Decades of prophetic warnings eventually catalyzed a state-led religious reform meant to eradicate the cult entirely. The purge is executed in 2 Kings chapter 23, verse 10. The historical record states that King Josiah defiled Topheth in the valley of Hinnom, so that no one could make his son or daughter pass through the fire to Moloch. This served as the definitive legislative and physical strike against the infrastructure of the cult. Josiah's forces targeted the physical sites of sacrifice, dismantling and ritually defiling the altars of the Topheth to render the grounds permanently useless for worship. Josiah's campaigns severed the state's political reliance on Moloch, dismantling the infrastructure of syncretism. Yet the physical scar on the landscape of Jerusalem remained. That physical scar creates a sharp contrast between the ancient historical reality of the valley and its lasting theological legacy. Because the Topheth was the site of such institutionalized wickedness, the geographical Valley of Hinnom transformed in the collective Jewish and Christian consciousness. This shift is evident in the language itself. The Hebrew phrase Valley of Hinnom, or Geh Hinnom, evolved into the term Gehenna. The literal fires once used to burn children were replaced conceptually. The valley became the prevailing metaphor for the fires of ultimate divine retribution. The history of Moloch demonstrates how a literal ravine used for political compromise and moral collapse birthed Gehenna, the enduring theological symbol of divine judgment for abandoning ethical foundations.